host listener. My name is Daniel.
I'm Phil.
And this is a podcast where we journey chapter by chapter through C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. This is chapter 11 of The Silver Chair in the Dark Castle.
Also known as the only chapter that I remember from my childhood.
Really?
Yeah, this is it. This is the scene with the silver chair specifically.
So all of this was nothing was surprising to you. The big reveal here that it is Rillian who has been the Dark Knight, you knew all along.
I didn't know that part specifically.
Okay,
but
so you didn't remember the chapter.
I do remember the silver smashing.
Okay, that's. I mean, that's on like a ton of the covers, though. Are you saying you remember?
Maybe that's why I reinforced.
Oh, that's true. That could be it.
But I remember it from the movie, and I believe, from the book too.
Oh man, I cannot wait to watch that BBC miniseries.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be fun. I don't remember any of that, so that's.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. This is a great chapter, a very important chapter, as we uncover the mystery of the Black Knight. We learn that he is Rillian, the Lost Prince, and the Silver Chair makes its first and I guess only appearance because it lays destroyed here at the end of the chapter.
That's true.
All right, well, that was not my chapter summary, but before I give the actual chapter summary for Chapter 11, we should remind listeners, Phil, that in the last episode, Jill, Eustace, and Puddleglum, they traveled into darkness. They went through the underworld. We really enjoyed this chapter. We both, I think, mentioned that we thought it felt like Chapter 15 of The Dawn Treader. It was creepy. We met Father Time. You were excited about that. You said he will not appear again. That was your prediction.
And then because of the look in your eye, I thought maybe he actually would appear again.
He didn't in this chapter.
Not yet.
But that all led to this castle where they met the Black Knight from the previous chapter. And that is where we'll begin. Eustace, Jill, and Puddleglum eat dinner with the Black Knight, who tells them he has no memory of his life before the underworld. He explains that his lady plans to break through the surface and conquer the overworld, placing him on the throne. He continues to disclose that he is under a violent enchantment that turns him into a serpent. To avoid the ensuing destruction, he is bound each night to a silver chair. As the night approaches, the three travelers are dismissed. They return later to find the knight crying for mercy. He claims that he is a prisoner and the true evil enchantment is the one on him during the day. In his fury, he cries out in the name of Aslan for the three travelers to untie him. Fearful of missing the final sign, the three untie him and learn that he is Rillian, the Lost Prince.
Did you see any parallels to The Dark Knight Rises?
I have not seen that movie since theaters.
Oh, really?
It's not a good movie, so I haven't seen it again. Do you like it?
Yeah, I love that movie.
You like 3-hour movies where Batman shows up for 8 minutes?
Not 8 minutes, just like 16. But
his
back was hurt, man. Give him a break.
I am...
just specifically the part where they're digging a hole under his armory and then all the bat tanks fall down.
I don't
We're going to drive
this.
these around all day.
Again, it's a very boring movie.
Cannot believe you.
It's not... It's... The last thing I'll say about it is... This is not the Dark Knight Minute or podcast. Sorry, Dark Knight Rises.
Minute.
Sure. But it's not necessarily that it is boring. It just doesn't feel like a Batman movie. And I think because The Dark Knight was so well beloved, pretty much out of the gate, I think Nolan and crew didn't know where to go from there. And so instead of trying to top it, they just tried to do something very different. But where they went with the movie just did not interest me at all. So,
but you were also a kid.
What?
You're also a kid when
it was 2012. I was in college.
Exactly.
No, but I wasn't like a baby watching it. Like
you were a lot smaller.
But still, I was not. I was a 20-year-old.
Right.
21-year-old watching the movie.
You're telling me you don't think you've matured very much since you...
No, I
9 years ago.
So any opinion I held when I was 21, I'm no longer allowed to have because I was too young then?
I think that you would not like your 21-year-old self, and you would disagree with a lot of things you said.
You're probably true. But you like this movie.
I liked it a lot.
So there's a part where they pulled the tanks down. That's reminded you all of this. Why did the Batmobile falling down remind you of...
Because they're literally undermining something. They're digging a hole and they're gonna take over the people on top.
Yeah. I didn't know if you were using undermining as a pun there.
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all of the Batman stuff.
It was a natural pun. It was rock solid. If you
Yeah,
will.
so all of the Batman talk was just so you could get in a couple of these jokes.
No, that one I made up on the spot.
Okay. That is, yeah, but you're right. This is where we start. Can we just call him Rillian? Do we have to call him the Black Knight?
I think because you've now done the chapter summary, it's fine to call him.
Yeah.
Rillian.
So enchanted Rillian here, daytime Rillian, if you will, is he kind of does the supervillain thing, where before he goes on with his plans, he has to tell the good guys his plans.
Yeah.
So this is him sitting there and be like, "Here's exactly what we're gonna do."
He starts monologuing.
Exactly, he does. So his monologue is that they are tunneling through, going to the overworld. They're only a couple of feet away, or yards away, I think he says, from the surface, and they're going to break through. The queen of the underworld is going to help him become the king, and in less than 24 hours, he's going to be put on that throne, which is a weird time frame.
I marked that too. I underlined that. I thought it's as if the character, and this is probably by design, is trying to make something sound fancier than it really is. Instead of saying, we'll be there in a day, he is 24 hours. And it kind of has an Abraham Lincoln vibe to it.
So you're taking this as what Lewis probably did mean, which is he's saying 24 hours.
Right.
And not the way I want it to be, which is that he's like, well, between 4 hours and 20 hours, at some point in there, I will be king, which
Now,
I don't think is what
if
Lewis
he
meant.
was an air conditioning repair person and he was saying, I'll be there between 4 and 20 hours from
Or
now.
like Verizon or Comcast.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be out
any
there.
cable. We'll be there in a week.
We'll be at your house between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. I'm like, that's not so a whole day. I have to be home a whole day. Wonderful.
Without internet.
Yeah. But yeah, I know I do agree that I'm pretty sure that he is talking about a full day here. He's doing the old Gettysburg Address way of saying things, which is a nice thing. I like that.
It has a nice vibe to it.
Sure. Were you going to read a part of this?
I was. This is from the very beginning, about 3 paragraphs in for those following along at home. So this is Prince Rillian, who at the time is still known as the Black Knight. Every night there comes an hour when my mind is most horribly changed, and after my mind, my body. For first, I become furious and wild, and would rush upon my dearest friends to kill them, if I were not bound. And soon after that, I turn into the likeness of a great serpent, hungry, fierce, and deadly. Sir, be pleased to take another breast of pigeon, I entreat you. So they tell me, and they certainly speak truth, for my lady says the same. I myself know nothing of it, for when my hour is past, I awake forgetful of all that vile fit, and in my proper shape and sound mind, saving that I am somewhat wearied. Little lady, eat one of these honey cakes, which are brought from me from some barbarous land in the far south of the world. So he's just explaining all these things that are going on, but he doesn't remember them, but people have told him.
He's also so nonchalant about the whole thing. He's like, yeah, guys, in a couple of hours, I'm going to be this wild snake that just destroys everything.
Please,
but it's fine.
Have some more wine.
Here you go. Keep eating. I'll be totally fine in the morning. Even if it's something that he has become accustomed to because it's his daily routine, just like brushing his teeth before he goes to bed, he should be wise enough, I know he's under a spell, to realize that for 3 other people, this is quite a shock to hear.
Yeah.
I actually really like the way that Lewis writes Really and Well Enchanted, because he is an annoying character.
He is.
He is so annoying. He's so full of himself, but he's also just this weak man. I mean, Jill points this out multiple times, that he is just not what a man should be. Mm-hmm. And I love that all of this builds up to the reveal at the end of the chapter. But he's not even the kind of bad guy that's, evil like the White Witch and just strong and powerful, or, Machiavellian like Miraz was, or non-existent like the Green Mist. Instead, he's this like weak guy that just takes orders from his mama,
Yeah. Who he's going to marry.
It's not really his mom, I know, but like Jill is not impressed with this, but that's for later in the chapter.
Right. And it is fun to see the little asides that Lewis makes about what Jill's thinking. Mm-hmm. And Jill is not interested or pleased with this person at all.
Yeah.
So shortly after, we have Puddleglum say something about the lady. He says, sounds like a very nice lady indeed, but he does it in a voice that is very clear that it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. And it just goes over the knight's head. Yeah,
all of this conversation, like I just mentioned, just paints this picture what I love is that we're hearing it both from Puddleglum and Jill, and even Eustace too, because Eustace thinks, I should say, he thinks to himself, he's a great baby, really tied to that woman's apron strings. He's a sap. Jill says thinks he's the silliest, most conceited, selfish pig I've ever met for a long time. And Puddleglum thinks, I wonder what a game that witch is really playing with this young fool. Though all three of them recognize the stupidity and cowardice of this man who is in front of them. Yet, as we're reading it through for the first time, there is this sense of danger about him because he has all this power.
Yeah.
He's a man, baby. Don't get me wrong.
But
he's a powerful one.
Yeah, he's one in a position of power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then he claps his hands together. He reveals that his hour is now near. And the children somehow finagle a way to not get put back in prison or to be put behind bars. And he lets them do this. He actually tells them the right timing. Go hide over here, and then I'll call you back when the coast is clear, and then you can watch me be put in this chair. Why do you think he does that?
Having spent just a few chapters with this character, I guess he didn't talk the first time I met him, so this is our second chapter with him speaking. He comes off as a narcissist, right? He very much, he wants to be king. He's all about, everything is about moving forward, it seems like, for him, or really just doing the bidding of his lady, right? And I get the sense that he invites them back because he wants to be the center of attention again. He wants everything to be about him. And he kind of has this, like, he plays this great host where he's doing everything. He threatens Eustace last chapter about, cutting his head off because he insults the Lady of the Green Kirtle. But it never seems serious. It never seems real. It just seems boasting. Mm-hmm. That's what he does. That's what the Black Knight does. He boasts and props himself up. He inflates himself because he. Now it's hard to know what is the enchantment and or how much of this is being done consciously at all. Is he, while enchanted, does he still have any kind of right mind? Is he just this other person, this other personality, and then the enchantment wears off and he's a different person? Not literally, but in his head. Or is he just pretty much almost like a puppet,
right,
for the Queen of the Underland? I kind of tend to think it's the former, that he almost has his own personality, and this personality is someone who's extremely insecure and does anything he can to just get propped up by and get the approval of this woman who tells him what to do all the time. And so he's like, please come back and watch me, and because he knows that his lady isn't there, and so he can kind of do stuff. I don't think this is in any way, though, and maybe you weren't implying this, I don't think this is in any way him trying to get them to come back to free him.
Really?
No,
not at all.
I don't think. It sounded like that's what you're implying.
Yeah.
No, I think that this is Aslan's doing alone. There is this some kind of divine providence. This is not anything on Rillian's part.
Wow.
But you think differently.
Well, I wondered if there was part of him deep down that really did want them to come back, and because he's kind of this. There's a fake layer put over his personality that allows him to only do certain things.
Yeah.
Somehow that deeper part, the real him, is acting and trying to use any opportunity that it has, maybe a subconscious motive. Mm-hmm. But I also like the idea of Aslan just kind of, adjusting events enough that they'll be there in time. Because I do feel like that's how things happen in our world here. Mm-hmm. Things just kind of line up a certain way where it has to be the Lord. So I'm fine with that theory.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking back to the very last chapter where the Black Knight gives them this, he chastises them and teases them for believing that the words under me were meant for them. Mm-hmm. And Puddleglum's faithful response is like, no, Aslan knew what those words were going to be when we showed up. And you're right, it might have been written for a different time and for a different person, but Aslan knew that when we came by, we would see those words. He holds all those things in his paws, and I think that's the same idea I'm getting here, which is that Aslan knows that this might just be the one time, or he might just be in the kind of mood where he invites them to stay and come back. And maybe if they had come yesterday or the next day, he wouldn't have felt that way. But it just so happened. I mean, we've talked a lot. Maybe we haven't. I feel like you and I have talked actually off the podcast about drawing parallels between the book of Esther here. I can't remember if we talked about it on the show or not.
I don't recall on the show, but we did talk about Esther quite a bit.
Yeah, but the some of the just providence that makes its way through this story more so. I mean, it's
and it
all
just so happened
exactly, and it happens all throughout the Chronicles. It's not unique to this one, but I have found myself realizing it more in this in book 4 here.
The connection for me to another story would be the first Avengers movie, where they're all together. Do you know what I'm talking about? You've seen the Avengers?
No, yeah.
The big green guy. And
I'm not tracking with you though. I've not seen it a lot.
There's
of
a
times.
part right toward the end, right before they defeat Loki.
When like the shot like pans around them. You talking about that or?
That is a great shot.
Oh, that's not what you're talking about.
No, this is when the guy from Good Will Hunting is messing with the Tesseract. Or
Matt Damon?
No. No, the professor.
Robin Williams?
No.
Isn't he the professor?
No, the other professor. The one that was Robin Williams' friend.
I remember Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and Robin Williams in that movie.
You don't remember anyone else?
Who else is in it?
I did not expect this to be this hard. Who's the person that works with Natalie Portman's character on like super science stuff?
Kat Dennings?
No, the older guy.
I do not know who you're talking about.
It's like Skarsgård or something.
Oh, yeah, I know him. Okay, I forgot that he's in those movies.
So here's what's not fair about this. You might be the only person who spends more time on IMDb than I do.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the exact dates of all this stuff, but you can't remember that he's in that movie. I'm trying to make a point.
The Marvel movies I enjoy watching all of them once, and then I usually forget all about them. There's a couple I have returned to and that I really do like. We just mentioned Thor Ragnarok recently.
Iron Man 2, your favorite?
No. But even like the first Avengers movie, while an enjoyable movie, I've seen probably like 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
The movie goes off, and I'm just like, that was fun, and I do not remember any of these things.
Yeah.
The irony, though, too, by the way, Phil, is that right before this, we were just talking about how you will never have a TV in your home, and yet I have one here right downstairs.
Right.
But you're the movie guy.
Yeah, but I like to watch movies at your house.
You like to watch movies on your laptop.
I do, yeah.
Just get a TV.
No. The
Are you afraid
screen's
people are
bigger
gonna
if the
judge
laptop's right in front of your face.
I think you're afraid people are going to judge you as a TV person when they walk in your house.
Maybe. No, I think there's too much of a temptation when the TV's there.
That's fair.
And it takes up a lot of space for something that I don't want to spend that much time on.
That's fair.
You know how like you don't, I don't know, I don't want to go into all this.
No, do it. Come on.
We're just going to fight. No, so the point is when he was messing with the Tesseract, he like puts in some back door and like a way to turn it off.
Like Galen Erso in Rogue One?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was under the control of like Loki's scepter.
Oh.
And he's trying to explain that he's like, you can't fight yourself. And the Black Widow says, Doctor, it's okay. You weren't yourself. You didn't know what you were doing. He goes, well, I think I did. And he built in a way that it could be destroyed if they did this certain thing in a certain order.
Do not remember any of this from the movie.
Yeah, well, you only watched it 3 times. By the way, when you watch something 3 times, you're like, I didn't like it that much. I only watched it 3 times. And I watched it 3 times too because I liked it so much.
I don't dislike it. It's a fun movie. It's a really fun movie. I'm not an anti-Marvel guy. I'm not like Martin Scorsese out there hating on all this stuff. They're fun. Like, let people have fun.
I didn't know he did that. That's
yeah,
fun.
he like in a bunch of other directors like talk about how it's ruining. They're just the westerns of our time.
Yeah.
Like westerns were incredible like 70 years ago. That was or like 60, 50 years ago. That was like the big thing. And it's just super movies now. It'll be something different in 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're fine. I enjoy going to see them. I'm not mad that people like Marvel movies. I don't get that. So after all of this, the 3 travelers, they go and wash up in the kind of side rooms here, maybe dormitories they're kind of made out to be. And they talk it over and try to decide what they're going to do. The children are not as keen on returning, but Puddleglum says, look, we need as much information as we can get, so we are going to go back. They head back in, Phil, and the Black Knight has not transformed yet. He has not, the spell has not come up on them. At least that's what they believe now.
This is the preamble, almost.
Exactly. He even says I'm not, the fit is not upon me yet. And then what do the three decide to do here?
They all stick together, and they don't do anything, but it gets worse and worse.
Well, even before that spell comes on, right, they have this pact, like you just said, that they are not going to untie him no matter what.
Right.
This seems to be almost prophetic for Puddleglum. How did he have any idea this guy was going to even be asked to untie? I mean, I was about to say how many snakes can talk, but I mean, look where we are. Snakes can probably talk. The Puddleglum, though, is very wise. And again, the last few chapters, man, Puddleglum has really stepped his game up. He's not been a foolish character at all. Well, I mean, except when he got drunk with all the giants. That was very foolish indeed. But after they've been in the underworld, after seeing the sign, actually getting one of the signs correct, it seems like he has almost had his faith restored, and he has been
recalibrated.
Oh, that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, recalibrated. And he has been the level head where Jill and Eustace have kind of taken a back seat. It almost feels like Puddleglum's adventure that Jill and Eustace are just commenting on right now.
And there may be times where Jill's in that role, or when Eustace is in that role.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But I think that's such a fun connection because we're all in those places at different times too, where we'll be going through different things in life, and you need someone who's maybe on a better path right there to kind of step in and say, hey, you're not quite doing maybe the best thing here.
Yeah, and if we want to look at this as a discipleship relationship here, is that a thing? Discipleship relationship, a relationship of discipleship, where Puddleglum is the more mature, and the other two are kind of gleaning their knowledge and wisdom from him. It would make sense that when they get to a really precarious situation like this one, he's able to step up and kind of show them the way. It's still their journey. This is Jill's task. She's the one who's been given this task, but he is able to kind of literally guide her in the correct ways here. And he does a very good job of this in telling them, hey, we've got to make sure we don't just go loosen this guy, because he could say all kinds of wild things. And wild things does he say?
Sure does.
What happens?
So the enchantments start to set in, and he says some wild stuff. You want to read that part?
Yeah, let's do that. He groaned. Enchantments, the heavy, tangled, cold, clammy web of evil magic. Buried alive, dragged down under the earth, down into the sooty blackness. How many years is it? Have I lived 10 years or 1,000 in the pit? Maggot men all around me. Oh, have mercy. Let me out. Let me go back. Let me feel the wind and see the sky. There used to be a little pool. When you looked down into it, you could see all the trees growing upside down in the water, all green, and below them deep, very deep, the blue sky. He had been speaking in a low voice, and now he looked up, fixed his eyes upon them, and said loud and clear, "Quick! I am sane now. Every night I am sane. If only I could get out of this enchanted chair, it would last. I should be a man again, but every night they bind me, and so every night my chance is gone. But you are not enemies. I am not your prisoner. Quick, cut these cords."
And Puddleglum's, steady. Steady.
Are you thinking about Jar Jar?
Yeah.
Steady. Is this back-to-back Gungan references?
It is. 2 episodes in a row.
All right. Hopefully we have.
We said big. Do not.
We're not going to do the voices. We're not going to do that here. Who knew?
We don't do that here.
Who knew that the most quoted movie on this podcast would probably be episode 1. So you're right though. Puddleglum, just like the great Jar Jar before him, looks out, sees what's in front of them, and says, "Steady, do not fall back, do not be intimidated by here." This has to be frightening for the 2 young children.
Oh yeah, they've probably never seen anything like this.
No, and even let's go a little bit deeper here in the underworld and think about the fact that what's being presented right in front of them is all of a sudden that carpet is being pulled out from beneath their feet. he's telling them, no, look, guys, I'm the real deal. This is me. Like, I'm not, that was the spell. I'm not. And all of a sudden, this truth that they thought they believed is completely gone in front of them. So then they're faced with this ethical dilemma here, this dilemma of faith, which is, look, we said we were going to do one thing, but it seems like the circumstances have changed. Do we change our plan?
Yeah. I also love that right before they do change their plan, they're all three encouraging each other. Steady, steady, steady. And they're all saying it almost in unison, but everyone's encouraging each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can tell how strong that bond is and how dedicated they are to keeping it. But man, this is a big change that happens. What the turning point, of course, is.
Yeah, let's jump back into that. The prisoner was now so straining at his bonds that they cut into his wrists and ankles. And then just another paragraph down or so, the climax of this scene occurs. "Once and for all," said the prisoner, "I adjure you to set me free. By all fears and all loves, by the bright skies of Overland, by the great lion, by Aslan himself, I charge you."
It's the sign, Puddleglum says. I love that he affirms it. Everyone knows it, but he says it out loud. This is just a great device by Lewis to, like, you get the surprise, you get that unique reaction that they have, but he also confirms it just in case the reader didn't quite pick up on it, which at this point I feel like they would, but it also reinforces Puddleglum's character because he's just constantly narrating stuff.
And it's Puddleglum's announcement that we have encountered one of the signs. This is actually the first time that that our travelers have, I should say, come into contact with the signs in the right time or place, right? This is the first time where we're encountering the sign for the first time, and we know that it's the sign. So it's this fourth and final test of, do we know what to do? The dilemma is that we just said we wouldn't. I'm acting like I'm there. I feel like I'm there. This is what Lewis does so well. We just said we wouldn't do this.
So then the children are left with this choice. Do you stick to the old promise? Or do you stick to the original plan that should hopefully override that promise that they made? That we need to stick to the sign. We need to help this person that called out in Aslan's name.
Yeah.
And we have this brief moment where Eustace is saying, well, he said the words of the sign. He didn't exactly do the sign. And Puddleglum, he says, I think we do know what we need to do. And they decide to do it.
And Lewis, as they're kind of having this discussion, the Lewis kind of turns to us as the readers, or the narrator does turn to us as readers and says, on the other hand, what would have been the use of learning the signs if they weren't going to obey them? Yet could Aslan, what?
That's just an interesting point.
Yeah. Yet could Aslan have really meant them to unbind anyone, even a lunatic, who asked it in his name? Could it be a mere accident? Or how if the Queen of the Underworld knew all about the signs and had made the knight learn this name simply in order to entrap them? But then, supposing this was the real sign, they had muffed 3 already, they daren't muff the 4th.
Yeah. And shortly after that, Puddleglum makes a great point. That fellow will probably be the death of us. But that doesn't stop us from what we have to do, which is follow the signs. But how great is it that they're finally kind of on the right wavelength and doing what they're supposed to?
Yeah, and again, it's Puddleglum's insistence that, look, like you just mentioned a couple minutes ago, this fellow will be the death of us. I shouldn't wonder, but that doesn't let us off of following the sign. God's commandments, God's law. We don't get to, just because it's difficult to follow, doesn't let us off the hook. That's not how this works, right? That's not how the signs work, and that's not how God's law works.
Right. So what happens when he does get free? They say in the name of Aslan, they cut his bonds. First thing he does,
he cries, "You first," and then,
which is scary.
Yeah, because you're like, who's he going after?
Right. I read that sentence very quickly.
Yeah, and then he goes upon the silver chair. He destroys it with a swipe of his sword. The chair is
I
broken.
swiped right.
The chair is red. Don't do that here. It's like, this is a family show. He's no, I can't. I was about to say he swipes right onto the chair. No, I just
Like I said.
he swipes right into the chair and destroys it, breaks it into many different twisted fragments, and tells it, and pretty much just casts it down. You know, lie there, you vile engine of sorcery.
Well, he's had a rough day.
He has.
Yeah.
Then he turns around and he recognizes the people around him. Well, not them personally, but he knows who and what they are.
Yeah, he recognizes a marshwiggle.
He's so excited to see a marshwiggle too. I love it. A real, live, honest Narnian marshwiggle. And this would make sense. If you see the two humans first, you're probably going to... The marshwiggle's going to stand out to you.
Yeah,
That's like some kids, whatever.
Yeah.
But a cool-looking frogman, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Before he even says anything to the children, Jill asks him a question, and all he responds is we find quickly that he is Rilian, Prince of Narnia, Caspian's son. And we find out that, look, we have followed the sign, and it has brought us to Prince Rilian. He has been found alive, safe so far, now that the silver chair has been destroyed, and that brings us through the rest of the chapter. What else did we learn, though, before we end?
Well, he asks about his father, and the prince learns that his father has started out on a journey, and that his odds are 10 to 1 that he'll die on that journey. So we now have a timer running kind of in the prince's mind. But also right at the very end, the prince says, I have an idea, just follow my lead. And my guess is he's going to try to act like he's still under the spell long enough to break free. I don't know how he's going to explain the broken chair and shards on the floor.
Or the fact that he's usually supposed to be under this crazy curse at nighttime, and yet he won't be. So, that's
he's not a snake. That's going to be hard to explain.
Yeah, well, this can be your prediction for the episode. What happens as he encounters the Earthmen at the beginning of chapter 12?
Yeah, I feel like he acts crazy for a little bit long enough until it's too late for them to do anything, and then he goes nuts, maybe knocks a few of them out, and then they make a run for it. That would be my guess.
That's a good guess.
Yeah.
I enjoy that prediction. No comment. Well, Phil, anything else from this chapter? This chapter ends pretty abruptly. In the middle of the conversation, the Earthmen are coming up. They can hear their footsteps, and then he flings the door open, and that's the end of the chapter.
Right. This is a heck of a page-turner section of the book. Very difficult to stop, but I have resisted, and so after we record this episode, then I can turn the page.
Yeah.
Take a look at the picture, understand what the title might mean, go from there.
Well, especially because the next chapter is called The Queen of the Underland. And in that chapter, as you can probably guess, the Lady of the Green Kirtle appears.
Excellent.
So, before we wrap up this episode, we do have some listener feedback. We have an email from Kate, who's from Australia. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. She writes, I'd like to begin by saying thank you so much for this podcast. I await each upload with eager anticipation, and hearing you guys discuss the Chronicles is always an absolute delight. I find myself feeling sad as I hear the closing fanfare of each episode, but the knowledge that I'll get to go on this journey with you again in 2 weeks makes it all worth it. Now, with the with the requisite compliments out of the way, I'll get into the weird meat of this email.
She must know about our secret filter.
Yeah, unless you give us
the good emails.
Yeah, unless you give us compliments, we will not read your email on the show.
Yeah,
that's not true.
Not at all.
In fact, one of the first emails we ever read was, Hannah's email about me saying the word wolf incorrectly, and I'll never forget that because now I'm always insecure about it whenever I reread.
I was just thinking about that the other day. I was walking my dog and I saw
You saw a
I saw
wolf?
a dog that looked like a wolf, and I thought, oh, a wolf.
I have to say, I remember getting that email from Hannah, and since then, I I do really try hard to say that. I still said it incorrectly a lot, but I do
Yeah.
practice harder to say that.
It's a journey, and you'll get there.
Yeah, but so you do not have to give us compliments for us to read your things, although we always appreciate it. It really is a nice thing.
Yeah, that is nice.
But I think that's fun from Kate. So let's get back to the weird meat of her email. She says, given the current situation with regards to COVID-19 and what with everyone being quite isolated, I've taken it upon myself to read the Chronicles of Narnia in chronological order. Sorry, publication purists. She's reading them to the students in her university's Discord. Many of the folks tuning in are Narnia novices themselves, yet they are so excited to hear each unfolding chapter of The Magician's Nephew that I ended up spending almost an hour last night plowing through the book. I think during a time such as this, it is important to hold on to those around us, even if we can't be with them physically. And the Chronicles provide such a cozy respite from the horrors of this world that I feel they are perfect for the current climate. While this isn't directly related to the contents of your podcast, I feel like you lads may enjoy knowing that you've served to inspire... Oh, this is really nice. You've served to inspire others to go out and share the joy of Lewis. Your podcast has been a respite for me, and the work that you do has inspired me to try and create a similar space for others. Wishing you good health during this time. Further up and further in, as always, Kate from Australia.
Oh, that was really nice. Thanks, Kate. I love that she is taking something she loves and sharing it with people in that group. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And those are really, really, really kind words from Kate. I'm so happy that this silly little show that we put on every few weeks, it brings a lot of people comfort. I mean, it's comforting for you and I. Like, we don't, get to hang out nearly as much as we used to, not just because of COVID, although that is one thing, but also you are married now and I have a kid, and just life becomes a little bit less focused on just social events and more focused on family. And it's been a respite in a crazy world for me too, and I know it has been for you, and I love hearing it's been the same for other people too.
Yeah, I think that if you can recharge yourself by providing something that will entertain or educate or help other people in some way, that's a big win.
Phil, throughout this pandemic, what has been, outside of the show like we just said, but what has been a respite for you in these last months?
In the last months, it has been reading stuff that I think I'd never felt like I had the attention or the focus for. And so the idea of reading 1,000 pages of The Lord of the Rings probably would have seemed just like something I don't think I would ever consider doing.
Yeah.
But I picked it back up, and I think I was on around page 300, and now I'm on page 800, and just
nice
to be so immersed in a story and just spend, maybe an hour or two here, but then maybe 20 minutes here, and just it adds up. That's been really fun. And then because I feel like this has exposed me to the really good writing, I now am changing what I'm interested in reading. So I used to read a ton of nonfiction, and now I'm considering what are the really, really good stories that have stood the test of time. I'm so happy
this is finally happening.
Isn't this great?
Yes.
And this is hilarious. All these things that I'm reading, I'm finding out that Daniel read them 6 or 7 years ago, and we can talk about them.
Sure.
An example is I just got into the Sherlock Holmes stories. This is as of 2 days ago.
Yeah, you thought they were based off the TV show.
Yeah, I thought they were novelizations.
No,
Not
just
really.
kidding.
I knew that they had been around for a while. I knew that they were out of copyright. But I found there's a service called Standard eBooks, and they format things for an e-reader, so you can just pick it up and start reading it. You can read it on the computer if you want.
Is it similar to like Project Gutenberg?
It is. They take stuff from Project Gutenberg and they fix little typos.
Because there's always so many in the Gutenberg stuff.
So yeah, for some reason when you scan the word "the," they think that TNE is close enough because the software isn't quite right. But they put it all on what's called a repository so that someone can access it and make changes and suggest the changes, and someone can pull them in pretty quickly.
Oh, that's
and then
awesome.
It's instantly updated everywhere. And so they're really top notch. I haven't seen a mistake yet. And that used to be a problem. I remember when ebooks were kind of first becoming a thing, that wasn't great. But just every night I look forward to grabbing a few minutes to myself, sneaking away and reading a few pages, and that has been so fun because this is really good stuff. It's filtered out over the course of 100 years. Not every popular author does that. I mean, yeah, it
This,
just
I mean, this
some of the
you're-
stuff fades away.
You're talking to a guy who teaches at a classical school, so this, yes, I very much agree with you. They've stood the test of time because they are good.
Right.
This isn't this. It's some things can be subjective, but actually a lot of things. And this is actually, I mean, Lewis talks about this a lot. I've been thinking a lot about, Lewis opens The Abolition of Man with this whole, he talks about this green book. He's kind of like speaking poorly about this school textbook and how it's kind of giving students this almost this idea that everything is subjective, this very postmodern idea that art is subjective, everything is subjective. It's all about how you feel. And Lewis, especially as someone who kind of often pushed back against modernity, is not in agreement about this. That there are good books and there are bad books, and a lot of times I think our modern world would tell us no, you just might not like it, but it doesn't mean it's good. And the rest of human history, I know maybe not everyone agrees with me on this, and that's totally fine, but the vast majority of human history would disagree with that and say no, in the humanities there is an objective good and an objective bad.
Yeah.
And The Dark Knight Rises is objectively bad.
Oh, this is not what they're saying.
But I've so that's awesome. I'm glad that that's been a good respite for you.
Yeah. What's been on your list of stuff to do?
I've been getting outside a lot more these last couple of months. I know that's cliche sounding. I'm not a huge outdoorsy guy, and I joked about doing all the national park stuff, but outside of vacation, I'm the kind of person that usually I go home from work and I might go for a run every once in a while or something. But now, I mean, Anna and I, we go on walks all the time, multiple times a week. It's harder now because it's we're getting later on in the year where it's dark earlier. But just in general, I've been doing that. I've been finding more time to work in my yard and just be outside. I'll put in my headphones and I'll just listen to a good podcast, listen to music. And this weird thing has happened recently where sometimes I don't listen to anything and I just outside and I listen to nature. And this is very out of character for me. You've known me long enough.
Well, you're just the kind of person that watches TV while he does dishes, right?
Yeah. Why?
To me, I feel like it's different if there are people around, then you get to talk to them, of course. But if you're by yourself, there can be something pretty relaxing about. You have 20 minutes. You can't do anything else. You can't read something because you have to look at the food you're scraping off the plate.
Exactly.
But it's a finite task. It has a good result. And if you do it for a couple of minutes, then your mind starts going places. And I feel like that's important. So I'm glad that you're getting a balance of stuff. You're still listening to things, but you have a little quiet time.
And this, I'm someone who can kind of make an idol out of just consuming things.
Yeah.
Not going out and buying a lot of stuff. That's not as appealing to me, but it's just more
consuming content.
Consuming content. That's much more, which is still it can still be a form of gluttony. It's not like this is, just because I spend thousands of dollars on clothes or something like that. Me trying to feel like I have to watch every TV show or read every book and stuff can still become an idol in and of itself. So it's been this weird thing where I actually have, often more time on my hands because of the pandemic, but I've been just taking things a little bit slower. Yeah. And not necessarily feeling like I always have to put something in front of my eyes, whether it's a book or a TV show or listening to a podcast or a new album or something. So that's a great email by Kate that kind of brought up a really fun conversation here.
Yeah, appreciate that.
For Kate, we're really, again, we're glad that this show has been something to kind of keep you cozy, as you said during I think you're talking about the Chronicles, but hopefully our podcast also feels cozy. I don't know, is that a thing anyone's ever said about the show?
It feels cozy in this room. You have 3 lamps and a triple candle over there.
You like that candle over there?
That's very nice.
$2.99 at Target.
$2.99
cranberry candle. $2.99.
First one's free.
I almost think Target, call us please if you want to do some advertising on the show.
Can you imagine if we were sponsored by a candle?
Dude, I would take it if it's I like Target, whatever. Well,
I'd be okay being sponsored by Target. I don't know about.
Are you an anti-candle guy?
No, I'm actually.
You're like one of those guys who thinks it's not manly to light a candle.
I don't think you should use a lighter. I think you should use matches.
I have my matches downstairs, but it's
get another box.
Here's the thing. With matches, I always feel like I have to. I'm being over protective here.
Are you soaking them in water and then throwing them in a metal
always
trash
make
can?
sure they get wet first, and I won't just throw them in the trash can. So because of that, I use a lighter upstairs, and the matches are all downstairs.
Okay.
Plus, it's downstairs because it's Christmas time with my Advent wreath and everything.
Yeah.
So
I feel the
Phil,
same way.
we have taken quite a little tangent here at the end, thanks to Kate's email, and so I think this is a good time for us to wrap it up.
Sure. Want me to do it?
Go for it.
This episode is made possible by our patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support the show, you can listen to a bonus episode each month along with other rewards. Special thanks goes to Elias Dean, Hannah Anderson, John Marr, Emily Margaret, and Ryan Smith for supporting us at our top tiers. Follow us into Narnia on our Twitter and Facebook pages, or send us an email at thenarniapodcast@gmail.com. The voicemail would also be appreciated at 406-646-6733. We'd love reviews on Apple Podcasts. This helps other listeners find the show and join our read-through. Also, make sure you subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app so you can wake up to a new episode every other Wednesday. Thank you for coming along on this journey, and we will be back next time with Chapter 12.